So I've been around tents and caravans and all those sort of things for years and years. So I thought I'd indulge myself and waffle on about tents and camping equipment and the things I found and what's worked for us over the years. So, starting off with tents. Tents are absolutely brilliant at getting started in this sort of lifestyle, finding out whether you want to explore more around the place. But they're also brilliant for longer stays in warmer climates, and today's modern family tents are absolutely enormous, so you can have plenty of space to spread out on days when the weather isn't so great. But when the weather isn't so great, it's an absolute hassle to try and set up a tent and get it all put together, and then when you get home, if it's wet, you've got to get it all back out and dry it again and so on. But if you're going to be doing that once or twice a year, then really that is the best mechanism to go with. You can head off down to the south of France or somewhere absolutely wonderful, set yourself up a home from home and have a fantastic time. And certainly those sort of style of holidays make it absolutely worth it in terms of the time you need to set up and get ready and get down there and so on. So really great for space and feeling like you're really back to nature. In terms of the style of tents, if you've got little ones, you're better off with something reasonably compact that still gives you a little bit of living space, because you'll probably want to have a single bedroom where you're all in together. And as your kids start to get older and older, then they'll need their own space. So some of these huge modern family tents, you can imagine having parents in one compartment and then perhaps a child on either side. And then there's even room to set up perhaps a little overnight loo area in a separate compartment that can be popped up or down, or perhaps in a little vestibule area. They're not good for things like stopping en route. So if you've got a huge drive and perhaps you've got all your stuff loaded in the trailer behind you, then you're going to need to be planning to stop at service stations and so on, and then you need to think really carefully about how you secure that trailer whilst you're using those facilities. Also obviously not great for noise, because noise can transmit through fabric very easily, both the noise that you're making, your family's making, and perhaps any other people on site. And then obviously temperature control is far more difficult because you don't have built-in heating. Obviously you can take heaters with you, but then you're just trying to warm the planet up. So not much insulation, not very good retention of heat. With modern tents and modern camping equipment, you can get really cozy and warm and be nicely set up, although it might take a few different experiments with different products to find out which ones are the right ones for you. So moving on to camper vans. Obviously there's a huge range of investments that you can make in a camper van, perhaps from something quite old to dip your toe in the water to have a go with a camper van to see if you get on with it in your life, right the way up to the brand spanking new conversions or direct from manufacturers. And camper vans are absolutely brilliant for having loads of stuff with you at all times, so they're really useful as a sort of support base vehicle, if you like. So if you're out with the family for the day, you can have a little loo with you if you're going to somewhere in the middle of nowhere. You can have cooking facilities, so you can stop in all sorts of places and perhaps have chairs with you and have a little coffee break or so on. And most of them tend to be of a size where it's actually realistic to use it as a daily driver. So you could have a camper van as your second car and not be too concerned if you need to head into the supermarket or drive it to work every day, for example. Of course, camper vans have the cool factor as well. A lot of the sites that are emerging nowadays for tents only, trying to promote this back to nature vibe, will accept camper vans, assuming that you can drive onto them, of course. And so you can have the best of both the tent world, so feeling like you're back to nature, but also a few more comforts that you can get into a camper van. So a camper van itself on its own obviously doesn't provide you with a huge sense of space, so you've got to be able to get on with everybody that you're trapped in the vehicle with, if you like, and likewise don't give you much privacy. But if you combine them with drive-away awnings or additions on the side, then for a family it's a great practical sort of base vehicle. However, if the camper van is in addition to the normal vehicles you might have for everyday life, then it's certainly going to be quite hard on the bank balance. So moving on to caravans. Again, one can pick up a caravan for not very much money at all. Probably a good start to check out whether you like that sort of lifestyle, to have a go at towing. It's really not difficult, but obviously you need to think about what you're doing and be aware of what's going on around you to make sure you're staying safe and everybody else is safe. So think of a caravan, a basic one as perhaps a posh tin tent, if you like, a sort of posh tenting approach. But caravans give you heating, they give you insulation, so it can really extend the time that you can go out and see the world. And en route they're a lot more practical too. So obviously you'll be stopping in safe off the road laybys or in service stations or so on. But one of the things our kids absolutely love is just popping into the caravan and having some lunch straight from the fridge. You know, they absolutely adore that sort of thing. And the eldest quite often thinks of that as the highlight of the holiday, so goodness knows where I'm going wrong. So a caravan by itself is not as spacious as a tent, but by the time you've added an awning to it, then you can achieve plenty of space for all, and everybody can find their own little area for a bit of alone time, a bit of privacy if they need to. And also caravans are great for going off grid, so you don't have to be plugged in all the time. You know, you can go for a couple of days quite easily, running the fridge on gas and the cooking on gas and just using 12 volts for lighting. Or with a solar panel you can go for much longer. The downsides of a caravan are obviously you have this thing on the back of the car. So whereas in some of our videos when we've taken the tent out we've been able to stop en route to see particular attractions, you can't do that with a caravan, because where on earth are you going to park the thing? So you have to plan quite carefully the route that you're taking to make sure it's practical for a caravan to go down, and also think about stopping points and safe driving. So motorhomes are probably the easiest in terms of setup and pack down, especially if you've got some of these auto leveling legs installed. They're brilliant for wild glamping, so you can go with all your creature comforts to the sort of places where you are allowed to wild camp. Really think of a motorhome as a road trip enabling device, so a thing for touring in absolute style. But on the downsides, where on earth are you going to park it when you're not using it? Same issue for caravans. But when you get to site, are you going to stay on a site? In which case, how are you going to go for days out? Are you going to get bikes? Are you going to have to tow a small car behind the motorhome itself? Are you going to use taxis? Are you going to walk? So the whole how do you do things on a day-to-day basis when you've arrived somewhere is much more complicated. So if you're into driving around, going to a different place on every single day of the holiday, then the motorhome is the best route. But if you're going to go to a place, set up camp home away from home, then you're better off with something like a caravan or a tent. Also check your licenses, because payloads on motorhomes can sound quite large. So for example, lots of them quote 500 kilograms, but if you've got to include 3 or 4 passengers in that and all their stuff, so if you've got kids with bikes or sports equipment or canoes or goodness knows what else, are you actually going to be able to get all that stuff and all those people? Because remember, it's a motor vehicle, so the running weight only includes usually a driver, usually some proportion of a tank of fuel, may or may not include water within that, both waste and fresh. So really check the specifications on that vehicle. Also, most motorhomes are quite pricey, so if you compare a top-end motorhome with a top-end caravan with a top-end tow car, then you're probably looking at a similar sort of price. But do you need that vehicle for everyday use, in which case the motorhome will be an extra vehicle, or does it simply become the second vehicle for you? What are your home circumstances? So being a scientist, I thought I'd sit down and come up with some categories of things that were important to us anyway, and then try and rank the 4 different modes, if you like, against those. So the first one was cost, where naturally tents are best. I went for caravans as second because there's a huge range of price of caravan that you can pick up, obviously, and they tend to be cheaper overall than camper vans or motorhomes, but of course individuals will vary. Speed to pack up and set down. So from my experience, I found that motorhomes are very much in this category. Obviously, if you've got all your washing up out on the draining board, then you need to put that away every day before you move the motorhome itself. But if you're in the style of moving on every day, then you're probably used to tidying up as you go along, so that the van starts to become ready to move at a moment's notice. And then camper vans, then caravans, and then tents last. So tents last obviously because one has to set the tent up, get all the furniture out, unfold the furniture, put all the carpets in, all the rest of it, plug everything in. Camper vans I put probably a little quicker because it's, in most cases, it's a case of park and level, whereas a caravan, it's park it, unhitch it, level it, steadies down, plugging water in, plugging power in, plugging waste in, etc. Then I went for impact of bad weather. So in a motorhome, I've put motorhomes first because you don't tend to use them with awnings. So if it's rainy, it's simply a case of tidying everything away inside and unplugging, perhaps if you've got power and on the outside, and then filling and emptying tanks. Whereas if you've got an awning up on a caravan, you need to get that down wet. Obviously if it's rained on the last day, and then get that back out when you get home to be able to dry the thing off, as well as steadies and hitching and all the rest of it. What feels like proper camping? Well, I think a tent has to be number one in this category, closely followed by camper vans. Spaciousness, I think given the huge family tents that are now available, really enabled by this air technology, then tents definitely win out on the spaciousness category. And especially if you're thinking about separate areas for older children, you know, there are plenty of divided bedrooms now which work really well for families. Sleeping comfort, I've got caravans and motorhomes equal first because they're very similar beds. It may be that you have a fixed bed with a very nice luxury mattress on, or it may be that you have to make up the bed every day. But either way, there are toppers, for example, available that can make that even more comfortable. Comfort en route. So the motorhome has to win out here. You simply stop somewhere safe. Perhaps you rotate your driver's seats around so that you can create a lounge area. And hey presto, you've got cooking facilities, you've got washing facilities, everything without having to leave the comfort of your vehicle. And then hassle when not in use. So when you've got a tent, you know, it's a big pain to have to load the car and then to have to unload the car when you get back home again. But it's simply a case of taking it all and putting it in a shed or a loft or something like that, and it's not really making a big impact on your life. Whereas if you've got a camper van, that's obviously a vehicle, so it's got to be insured, it's got to be taxed, it's got to be serviced, MOT'd, all of that sort of stuff. And the same for a motorhome. And also with a motorhome and a caravan, do you want to, and if you want to, can you park these things on your drive at home, or do you have to find a storage centre to keep them in? Whereas a camper van is very likely that you can park it in the same space as a car. So then I thought, okay, so from all the things we've learned, you know, what are these things best suited to? Well, tents are absolutely ideal for long stationary holidays, perhaps a week or 2 weeks in nice climates. Really give you, especially if you go for something like polycotton, really give you that breathable, outdoorsy feel. You know, camper vans are great for looking cool, and they really give you a few more facilities that can help with comfort. So for example, if you've got water tanks on board, you've then got running water, which makes washing hands so much easier without the need to trek across the field and be filling up containers of water, because you can fill on the way in and on the way out with the camper van. And if you combine them with a drive-away awning or a tent, then you've got the pluses of both. Caravans, like tents, are great for longer breaks, or perhaps at one or two sites, but where you're fairly static and you're going out from the site itself to see attractions in the area every day. And for me, I think they're absolutely brilliant with little ones because you've got facilities on hand. So you've got loos on hand for those inevitable, "Mummy, I need a wee," last minute things without the need to trek across a field or get them to wee in a bucket. And then motorhomes are ideally suited to touring and road trips. So where you're going from place to place in the vehicle itself. You don't need to worry about parking the thing up. You're touring around, and preferably in mainland Europe, because mainland Europe is incredibly well set up. So there are airs, places you can fill the tanks, empty the tanks, stop for the night quite safely in lots of villages, and villages and towns are within easy walking distance of those parking areas. So then the last thing to say is, you know, how do you get the most out of it? How do you really appreciate that mode of travel? So for tents, I'd say it's all about getting the right setup, the right equipment. So buy something like, for example, a polycotton tent if you're going to be doing a lot of warm climate camping. So, get the gas fridge, the hookup enabled fridge, get the mobile hot water system, and then all this stuff just makes life much easier while you're there, without having to trek back and forth to the facilities on site, and hoping that whichever site you've landed at have these good facilities. But once you've got all this, you probably still need a trailer to put it all in. So getting the most out of a camper, make sure you've got all these things built in. So you've got water tanks built in, you've got cooking built in, stuff just to make life as easy as possible, so you really appreciate having that vehicle. And use it to its best ability. When you go out biking for the day, stop at the end for a cup of tea, or you get some kayaks out, and you've got plenty of room in the camper to enable all these sort of things to happen. With a caravan, try and store it as close to home as you can, so that it's packed year round and you can just get up and go when you've got a free weekend. So really try and minimize the hassles involved with owning it. And for a motorhome, for me personally, watching lots of YouTubers and seeing the community in action, it's all about really having the time available to make the most of it. So enjoying the long and the slow travel, the slow road trips, to really get under the skin of places and really find out about what's going on around us. So what are the conclusions here? Well, tents, it's all about the feel. Campervans, it's all about the day-to-day practicality. Combine that with the cool factor. And then caravans, it's about the creature comfort. So a bit of space with a bit of luxury to really enjoy getting out and about. And for motorhomes, it's all about that luxury-enabled mobility. You might not be able to park it everywhere, but you can go for thousands and thousands of miles and be totally comfortable. So it took me quite a few years to convince Dad on a mission that we really needed a caravan. And there were two words to explain this: cost and style. Costs involved obviously are huge. You can get yourself kitted out with absolutely the very best top-of-the-range tent-related stuff for about the same price as you could probably pick up a reasonable second-hand van to try out whether you like the caravanning lifestyle before you know whether it's for you. But the other point is style. And let's face it, there are an awful lot of very, very ugly caravans around the place, as well as some more stylish modern ones, I should add, of course, before I insult absolutely everyone. Dad on a mission particularly likes to call them great big white boxes of air being towed around. So why is it that all the funkiest, cutest, wonderful caravans are either small, not practical for a family, or not only cost twice as much as the first property we bought, but also weigh an incredible amount, meaning you need an equally expensive tow car? So manufacturers, let's have some materials innovation and see if we can really get the weights down to match today's tow car, while also giving spacious and stylish family living. Just a small ask. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the summary. Let me know what you think. Pop some comments below. Bye for now.